What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Co-Living Show. My name is Craig Curelop,
Miller McSwain.
and we've got an amazing episode for you today with Alfredo Goytia. Goytia, I messed it up. I think I said it right in the beginning.
He does it better in the show, guys. Yeah.
It's been an hour since I've heard it. Yeah, it's going on in my brain. But Alfredo, man, going from like nothing with co-living to over 800 doors in 12 months. Like, that's like loco. That's nuts.
Yeah, I feel like he's a huge player in the space that folks don't hear from all the time. Like you guys hear me and Craig talk all the time. There's other communities and all that out there talking all the time, which is fantastic. But now we kind of get to peek behind the curtain about a guy who, has grown to immense scale very quickly. And even beyond that, had a whole background in property management, fintech, all sorts of stuff before that to kind of lead up to where he is today. So we'll get to learn all that.
Yeah, he's got a really cool story, and we dig very deep. If you're interested in operations and you're interested on how to operate at 800 doors, even if you're only at 8 doors right now, it's good to set this. There's really not much more cost from 8 to 800 other than just like more people, but like the systems work the same. So take the systems that we're talking about now in the show. This is why the show exists. Implement them now. So that way, if your plan is to go from 8 to 800, you've got the system in place. You don't like we've already done the trial and error for you. So just rip off and duplicate what we've done.
Yep, I'm with you.
Okay, Miller, before we get into the show and before we get into our question from the group, what's up, dude? Tell me about you. Give the world a little Miller update.
Let's see. So busy. As you guys know, Craig and I recently merged and started managing a bunch of properties together. So been having a lot of efforts on that side. In particular, a lot of the questions that you guys will hear me ask Alfredo today is like deep into like screening and like what his interest forum looks like, what his website's like, things like that. On the business side, we've been kind of diving super deep into that kind of stuff. And otherwise, we've just been enjoying the Colorado winter. We moved up to kind of a mountain town that's 30, 40 minutes outside of Colorado Springs, our home base. So it's been a little bit different. Up here, we get snow more often. Snow stays longer. So we're learning how to drive in it and kind of manage it around the house. Had to buy snow melt for the first time ever. Funniest thing is, we have 8 properties or whatever that we own down in Colorado Springs. We've always bought snow shovels, bought snow melt, but I've never actually used any of that. So now I'm getting to learn how to use it myself.
You're becoming a winter guy. Congrats, man.
Winter man.
Yeah. Winter Wonder Man.
What's been going on with you, Craig?
Yeah, we got back from Hawaii like a week ago ish, and we just love it there. So my wife and I, we had some really good times in Hawaii. Went to Denver to see the team and see you, and we got dinner. That was awesome. And now we're just looking to continue growing this co-living thing. We're excited to scale it, and I'm excited to keep rolling with it. And Alfredo, I think Alfredo, what we talk about today with Alfredo is we're the personalities, right? Yeah. And sometimes I think people get fooled that, because we're the personalities and we're the voices, like we're the most experienced. That is not the case. Mm-hmm. In low key, like we selfishly started this show so that we could bring people on like Alfredo, like Dave Edwards, like these people that are managing at a much higher scale even than us, so we can learn from them. And then also you all benefit from learning from them as well. Yeah, this is super fun, and I'm pumped to share Alfredo's story.
Make no mistake, the questions that we're asking aren't like, oh, we already know the answers to these. Let's ask just to let the listeners know. I literally have a list of things written down to go take action on right after this. So I'd recommend that you guys do the same. Definitely take notes for this episode. This is one of those.
Okay, so if you're not already in the co-living community group, you got to go join that group. And today's question is from our good friend, Caitlin Verdugo, who was actually on one of the episodes. She was an awesome guest. And so her question is, what property management systems are we using that are not pad split? And there's some more context to the question, but that's essentially what it is. And so, Miller, I guess I'll let you answer that.
Yeah. All right. So there's definitely a handful of options. I guess I'll take it into, there's 2 categories, I would say, 3. Number 1, if you're on pad split's going to do all your rent collection. But otherwise, when you're looking for a property management software, that's where you're collecting rent, doing maintenance tickets. That's where sometimes you're messaging your tenants through there. You're signing leases, right? It takes care of all that admin type work that can all be done online now. So I would say if you meet these 2 criteria, if you're under like 6 properties and you're only managing your own stuff, you're not like managing for other people, we found a lot of success with Inago. So that's INNAGO. That one's been great. It's free to the landlord to use. There's like a small fee to the tenant. I think it's like $1 per transaction or something like that, that no one's ever really made a fuss about or anything. So that's been an incredible free solution that has handled, yeah, the 6, 7, because we were scaling in Colorado Springs. That's what we used. Once you get to a little bit bigger scale, say over 6 properties, or you are doing third party management, that's when I would dive into something a little bit beefier. The beefier ones I see people use are Door Loop, Appfolio, and then Craig and I are using a software called Rentvine. That's been great too. So those handle the larger volume and allows you to manage like owner payouts and all that for third party.
Awesome.
There you
Miller,
go.
thank you for answering. Now let's
You
bring
got it.
on Alfredo Goytia. Alfredo Goytia, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing
Thanks,
today, dude?
man. You nailed it. I love it. I think that's the first person I've ever heard nail the last name like that.
Really? Well, is it because that you said it like 3 seconds before we started recording? So I was just saying it over and over again in my head, and so I couldn't get it wrong. That
Yeah.
could be part of it. Awesome, man. Hey, welcome to the show. We're super pumped to have you on. Where are you at right now, like in your co-living journey? Like, why would we even invite you here?
Oh man, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think Miller has some bad judgment on operators, so I'm here today. No, but yeah, I think we've had a pretty extraordinary journey. We are hitting on about 800 doors under management in co-living, and we did it in a little under 12 months. I think we're at our 13th month of operation today for co-living. So it's been a journey there, and I think Miller and I have shared a bunch of how-tos back and forth as we've been growing. So I think if that's something folks want to get into or how to scale, I think this might be a good conversation to have because it's all I'm focused on.
I think we're really looking forward to hearing what you got, Alfredo. So let's start in the beginning, like any good story. How did you even get into co-living? Why did you start it? What intrigued you about co-living?
Oh yeah. So I was a buy and hold guy, and it's not sexy. People usually make fun of me whenever they hear that. They're like, I had a bunch of folks whenever I first started saying wholesaling was the thing and they were making this transactional money. And like they were pretty impressive checks. I think I had the luxury of starting real estate when you looked like a genius because the market kept going up. And so it wouldn't matter what you did, as long as you kept with it for 12 months, you were going to make money. In 2022, that hit a wall, and you saw who was swimming naked because the tide didn't just go down, like it retracted immediately. And so everybody was like, oh no, I don't have clothes on and I don't know what I'm doing. And it was just this funny thing. And so in 2022, I think at that point, I reached up to 40 regular single family doors. So everything from long term rentals, Section 8, midterm rental, Airbnbs. I did some seller financing stuff. So I think I still hold 8 notes today from seller finance flips and that's just flips that didn't go well. But in 2022, we hit a moment of, I think it's like March, and we see interest rates are going up, and we're like, dude, what are we going to do? And so I ended up pivoting to try to figure out how we save cash flow and still keep buying and holding. I didn't bump into co-living until November of 2024. And I heard these whispers because I was still trying to figure out. I went pretty hardcore in midterm rentals. I never did short term because we're in the Metroplex. And so for those that don't know about midterm, it's just essentially putting it on Airbnb, at least the way we're doing it. And it's 30 days plus. We use a software called Price Labs, and it manages the dates and the bookings, which is really good for somebody that does that, because if your place isn't booked out the next week, you can have it set up to where it automatically allows people to book that week, but it'll stay trying to keep the rest of your calendar booked out to optimize for long-term midterm. And so November of 2024, we start hearing these whispers. And I think most people are probably really aware of Pace Morby. And we're seeing a bunch of his videos on, he's now like the evangelist for co-living, and like he brings Pat Split on board. And so I was like, yeah, let's try it out. I converted one of my properties that was already a natural 6 bedroom into co-living, and I met this Pad Split account executive to who this day, he's such a good resource for any market info. And if I can give a shout out to Justin over at Pad Split here at the Dallas market, he brings me on and we're walking through my house. I think that's back when they used to do walkthroughs with you whenever you were onboarding. And he was like, what do you do? And I told him I owned a property management company. I think at that point we had 250 regular long-term rentals under management. And just for some context, I bought that about 6 months before, and it was at 150 normal single family homes under management. And so I was talking to Justin about it. I was like, yeah, we were pivoting. We're trying to create more of a recurring revenue model and we're buying those businesses. And so property management was the first one. And he's like, dude, there is a gigantic gap for property management in co-living. Will you help us figure it out? He's come over to this next event. The event was like, I think we met on a Thursday and the event was that Saturday. That Saturday, he just started introducing me to a bunch of operators that were coming to the event. There I met at that event that night, Tiago Camillo. If you guys know Tiago,
Yeah.
he's essentially a coach for a bunch of, I think it's like 2 or 3 masterminds, one out of North Carolina, Sam Wiegert's group, and one out of Austin, Diego Corzo's group. And he helps them basically source co-living deals. And so I met him that night and he brought me on the next day to go take a look at his existing co-living property. And he became the first property we started managing when we had no idea what we were doing, but he's like, hey, we can figure it out because we need to grow this thing. And he had a bunch of problems. He's like, I want to be more hands off of this thing because, as you guys know, it's not for the faint of heart to manage 8 personalities in a house and giving them a direct stream of conscious to you via texting or via messaging apps. So you hear about everything at all times. And so, yeah, basically I met Tiago that day and I became Pad Split's biggest vendor partner in Texas in about 4 months. There's a couple of other operators that we were talking to at the time. And so, yeah, today I think most of our deal flow or most of our client flow comes from folks that are helping people acquire and co-living, and they use us on the back end for the actual operations.
So prior to buying that management company, it sounds like boom, like you have a ton of properties at once from that. What did you own? Did you own anything yourself before getting that management company? And like how many units was that?
Yeah, so I bought the management company like that mid 6 months before. We were already at the 40 units. As of 2022, we were kind of
Okay.
like buying and selling off. So I was already at 40 units. What's really funny about that is I was like, I've got this great idea. I don't want to do property management. So let me buy a property management company. And then like 2 years later, we're here scaling the property management company and it became my life.
Alfredo, just to take a step back to kind of understand like where you come from. What's your background and why did you decide like property management was something that you would get into?
That's really interesting. So I went to school for software engineering and I interned at a company called USAA out of San Antonio. They do like financial services for the military. They gave me an internship and they hired me straight out of college. About 2 years in, I was doing community events for a technology called React, which is just like the way you do front end development now. It's what AI uses now to do all of front end development. If you use AI to build tools or whatnot, at that time, nobody was doing it at enterprise level yet. I was on one of the first teams that was. So I got headhunted from Goldman Sachs to go build out this thing called Marcus. And if you have an Apple card, on the back of the card, it says Goldman Sachs. And so we built out the service as a bank behind the Apple card. I was one of the original 6 engineers in Dallas on that project. Back then, we called it Project Cookie. We didn't know who the partner was. We didn't know we were working with Apple. Everybody there worked so compartmentalized. You only know the piece that you're building and everybody signs NDAs and we couldn't tell anybody what we were doing. And long story short, they do some insane bonus structures where if you're a high performer, there's no cap on your bonus. And so I was making 6 figures out of college back in 2016, 2017 from Goldman Sachs. And I was getting my salary. I got 90% of my salary as one bonus check and like on a February working back with Goldman. And you're just like, holy crap, what are we going to do with this? And so somebody had handed me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad back then. And so I was like, I obviously did it wrong. I'm in corporate America. I've got the golden handcuffs. Like the golden handcuffs were so real because, dude, after 7 p.m., dinner was on the company and they would give you a town car to go take you to your house or wherever you wanted to go. If you went out to a bar, whoever was a senior most person there put their card down at the bar and it was just wide open for everybody at the bar. And so it was just wild times. I think they probably tightened it up since then because I mean, just the golden handcuffs are real. Whenever we traveled to New York, they owned a 5-star hotel called the Conrad on Wall Street. And that was our living where you were living there while you were working across the street on Wall Street. So that whole experience was insane. And it put just this massive amount of capital in my bank account. What was crazier is that at that time, my wife was now pregnant and Goldman at that time gave you 4 months of paid paternity leave. And
Wow.
so I've got some capital and I've got some time. And so we just started going ham on real estate. I was like, I need to get this passive thing. And I literally just went down Brandon Turner's book of how to invest in real estate with no and low money down. And I just literally went chapter by chapter and was like, just, all right, I need a house hack. Dude, bought my first duplex because my wife was still in college. So got it near university, lived in one side. My buddy from high school paid my rent, paid my mortgage. Living in the other side of the duplex was like a fun 2 years. Then I found out what hard money loans were. Then I find out what private money lenders were. And I ended up turning a lot of my coworkers, both at USA and at Goldman Sachs, into private money lenders because we were telling them what we were doing. And everybody that sits around you in corporate America usually has what I call a straggler 401k. So it's like they probably jump from a different company and they've got this money sitting in the account and they don't know they can roll that over into something called a self-directed IRA. And then you are the investment vehicle. And so it'd say, hey, if your stocks are volatile, like why don't you put it in some good old fashioned Texas real estate backed by a first position lien? If I fail, you can take the piece of property. And so I raised a bunch of capital just from people listening to what I was doing that were sitting next to me and like in front of me. And a lot of those folks are still in deals with us today, but we always structured them as private money lenders and not necessarily partners. So the entire portfolio is owned. It's solely by my entity. And so, yeah, so that kind of went on that journey and we ended up flying into where we are today with some properties.
Yeah. So that's nutty. That's like a crazy place to work for, it sounds like. Okay. So whenever you actually make the leap from having these golden handcuffs into the next venture, what was your thought process around that? Because I think people take different approaches. I left my W-2 before I totally had my salary covered because we had really low expenses and my wife still worked. Those were maybe our two aces that we had there. How comfortable did you feel moving from the golden handcuffs forward? And how much of your salary income had you actually had covered at that point?
Man, that's a really good question. I think we weren't ready to move. And I just remember my wife pushing and saying, okay, if we need to move back to your parents, because the problem is I had a need to move because at Goldman, I was a high performer, but I also gave them my Saturdays and Sundays. Like they didn't ask you to, but the badge of honor there was like, what time did you get in? What time did you leave? How much work have you put in? You walk into work and you're like, dude, I was here till 10 p.m. at night. And another guy's, dude, I was here at 11:30 p.m. last night. That's like a badge of honor that you wear there. Whereas like in the financial space, the more wealthy you are, it really means like you can control your time more. Not necessarily like the financial number, but can you control your time is all we're trying to do at the end of the day. And so my wife was like, you're never going to see your son. Like, like we have to make a change. And so I had pressure to move off and her support because we didn't have recurring revenue to cover our expenses, but I knew ways to create revenue if we needed it. We would wholesale a property. We would do a flip if we needed expenses. So that it wasn't set. I didn't know how much money I was going to have in my bank account next month, but just I think the support and the pressure, like we just ended up taking the leap. And I think most guys in entrepreneurship are like the guys that jump off a cliff and then start trying to build the airplane. Like that's what I did.
I really like how you like just going back to like how you structured your deals, like how you structured them as private money and not as like equity plays. So curious, what was your typical deal? What were you buying properties for? What were you renovating them for? How much of that did you raise? Any contribution for yourself? And then like, how did you pay your financiers back?
Yeah. So the deal structure is like your standard BRRRR. It worked a lot better pre 2019 than it does today. I think you can still make it work today, but you have to know that there's probably going to be some money left in the deal and your private money lender is probably going to have to be okay with that. So and the biggest thing to do this is you had to be a deal finder. Like it doesn't work if you don't have the deal. If you have a deal that gets presented to you, if the numbers don't work, you have to be okay with saying no and not jumping into that. And so like for us, we were buying things at 70 cents on the dollar. Really, the way I was structuring it, I was buying it at about like 66 cents on the dollar. But I would make some money at closing because I was trying to generate revenue. And so I would borrow at 70 cents on the dollar at the closing table. I usually put 5 to 10K in my pocket whenever we were acquire a property. And then these average deal sizes, like we're probably buying like 250K properties at the time. And we were, man, like the average acquisition cost was, or purchase price was probably like around somewhere between 60 to 85K for these properties. We'd maybe put 50, 60K into them to get them going. And then we would just go and refi. And so we'd go to a bank. I had a really good connection to a local community bank that wanted to invest in these things called majority minority tracts. It's like in the banking world, and it just helped to have kind of connections of people to introduce me, like being in Goldman Sachs, I can get some doors open to some bankers. There are these zip codes that the government has deemed majority minority zip codes. And so from a compliance perspective, you need to have a certain amount of loans lent out inside that zip code. And so I found out what those zip codes were, talked to the lenders, got some preferable pricing and lending, and they would finance me up to 80% of whatever the property was worth once it's all fixed up, stabilized, and rented. And essentially no points. Like I wasn't paying really much in origination costs. And so my financing was super cheap from these local community banks. And then I would refi out. And usually on the refi, back before 2019, I could pull a little bit of money out on the refi as well and still pay all of the lenders back and then keep going in that direction where we just then go and recycle their money. A lot of the acquisition money, if they didn't have enough, we were stringing together lenders. So it could have been a hard money lender paired with a private money lender for gap funding to do the acquisition. At most, I did 3 money lenders, private money lenders once to finance a whole deal without a hard money lender. And so we were structuring it that way and then just doing like a regular refi out to pay everybody back. If there was a deal where some money was going to be stuck in the deal, like I bought a couple of Airbnbs where I overpaid for them, but because the cash flow is going to be really good. And so in those, the pitch to the private money partners was essentially like, hey, if you want to learn how to do the deal, you're going to stay in this for a 5-year term and then we can refi out.
So it sounds like in the beginning, you weren't doing, these are just like traditional burrs, like you're renting it out long-term or, right? You're not doing co-living at this point, right?
Yeah, not to get up to the 40. The first 40 was all just acquiring them.
40. And those, so you basically, let's bring it to 2024, like right before you started getting into co-living. It's October 2024. What's your rental portfolio look like at that point?
So yeah, it's probably something like 10 or less Section 8s, 10 or less Airbnbs, and the rest are long-term rentals. And then some seller finance notes in there.
And 40 total?
40 total. It's always been like plus or minus 40 since 2022.
And those were like, they weren't all like large single family homes that could be converted to co-living. I suspect some of them were just like, nah, they're 3-2s. They're going to chill as they are, right?
Exactly. And that's the hard part about trying to convert into co-living is that buy box is tough, dude. It's not, I couldn't just convert everything. I analyzed my portfolio and I'm like, there's like 2 that fit this. And so I converted those 2.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit because there are people out there who have portfolios and are interested in co-living. What are some of those criteria that you think would make a convertible house? You already own this thing. What are like the key things that make it a good co-living property?
Yeah, I've seen your content a lot, Miller. I think we align pretty well on like the very first like 50,000 foot view is, do you have parking? Are you near public transportation? And what's the employment demographic look like in the area? Is there going to be supply essentially? And I think if you've got a big enough footprint, if you've got nice enough parking, public transportation, and employment and employers, the next thing we just look at is co-living a fit for that neighborhood. And you don't want, we try not to be in A-class neighborhoods for renters in general. And so if there's more cars on the street, stuff like that, like we think those are usually good places.
Okay. So at this point, you do start getting interested in co-living, meet some folks that are doing it, get hooked up with Pad Split and all that. Do you think that you had any learning lessons that you were able to bring to the co-living side, I guess, especially early on from doing Airbnb / midterm? Like you'd already been in the furnished space a little bit and co-living is at least partially furnished. Do you have any learning lessons that you think kind of helped you kickstart maybe further ahead than other folks might have?
Yeah, what's interesting is I think the tech side of things is what really helped us kind of skyrocket into being able to manage more. Because if you can imagine, like managing co-living just feels like 1,000 little algorithmic steps that you have to do. It's just like 1,000 little processes for everything, and make sure you like everybody follows those processes. And my biggest thing is I like the human in the loop model where we strap automation and tech and a human can review the things that automation doesn't get perfectly. I don't like the thing where people scale and you've got a ton of people processes. You have your SOPs, but like it's really easy for people to skip their step in that process.
Real quick, Alfredo, before we get into the co-living stuff, I just want to see kind of like where you started from. So like you got these 40 doors. Like what roughly was your, if you don't mind sharing, what was your passive income from those properties at this point? And then what, if you don't mind sharing, like what your net worth was at that point, at least in real estate? Because like where I'm getting at is like, why did you keep going? Like it sounds like 40 properties, you're probably cash flowing, you got some decent net worth.
Interesting. That's a really interesting question. I think my wife asks me that a lot today because the issue is, I don't know, I've got a couple of really bad character flaws that make me to where I can't stop. And I think that's like the best way to say this is, yeah, I think at that point, like if we look back at where I was situationally, financially there, I don't know. I think net worth and like equity is kind of funny. I was equity rich, cash poor, as most real estate investors are, and so equity is maybe somewhere between 10 to 14 million. If we were to sell everything, like that's what we get to keep at the end of the day. And that was because there was a couple of big plays that we made, and some that we bought some land, and like we bought some land for 500K, and 3 years later, that land was valued at 3 million. And so there was some couple of crazy little plays like that inside there. But monthly cash flow is probably something like 20K after everything was paid off and expenses of that before we moved into buying the businesses. The problem is we were downtrending cash flow. And that's the thing where I was looking at, I need to generate something that has a faster cash flow cycle. So if you think, at least from a recurring revenue for people that are thinking of buying businesses, whenever you're buying real estate, in order to make that real estate start making you money, it's going to be a 6 to 12 month process before you start seeing that thing cash flow. And maybe you're somewhere between $300 to $1,500 a month in cash flow from that thing. We can do sales and we onboard 2 clients, and we're now generating that same thing where the cash flow cycle was 30 days, start generating that revenue generating activity. So we moved, one, because I had a business thesis being a software engineer and following the whole AI space of eventually, if we do get to a world where universal basic income is a need because AI has solved everything, what are the businesses, the things that I can do in order to make sure that they have the longest tail for AI to replace them? And so my idea was, well, we need to own and control as much real estate, because if they're paying the landlord to own rent, I want to get the rental check. And so get that rental check. And then service-based businesses are probably going to be the last tail end to get replaced. I think Elon Musk's robotic robot, I think Optimus or whatever it's called, I think they're going to be able to replace some of the human aspects of it, but it's going to be on the later tail end of it. I want to be that plumbing company that has niche plumbing robots that you're going to hire to come do the thing and get that space. And so the thesis was then buy more real estate, buy property management companies and acquire them so we can control more real estate. And then the service-based businesses that serve all of this real estate, and hopefully build this forever business. We talked about what the exits would look like. And now I'm just convinced it needs to be a family office. It needs to be like private held, privately equity that are forever businesses. And as our children grow up, they need to contribute a business into the business to participate in the business. And so just, I think that's where I'm at now. And like my mindset is now 3 generations from now, how am I setting this up to be able to have my lineage still be able to participate in there?
That's cool. I like how you're creating like a little mini Berkshire Hathaway, but like the Goytia Hathaway kind of thing. I like how you're requiring your kid to contribute a business before they can participate in the whole thing, because you see a lot of people give everything to their kids and then they just squander it away. But if they can build a good cash flowing business, then you know that they've at least got the mindset to push forward.
Right. And we think about that a lot. Like, how do you build them so that they are great people? And we've just come to the realization that, one, a good life comes from a hard life. So you need to make sure they go through the trials, tribulations, develop the character. And so they wouldn't even have to start a business. They could just start inside a business and learn it from the ground up and build a character, and then maybe run the business. They could participate in it that way. But we need to, one, give them the example of how to be a good person, and then 2, put them through the fires that forge them into like good people.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's get into co-living now, man. So you see this whole like opportunity with co-living, and you said you went from 0 doors to 800 doors in 13 months. That's nuts. So why don't we talk about like where did the first couple come from, and then let's talk scale.
Yeah, I think honestly, the first couple were what I mentioned earlier with Tiago. We onboarded his, and then he had other clients that were onboarding theirs. And then Justin for Pad Split, since there was no one else doing this. I think there were a couple of operators that had tried in the market, but as soon as they found out how much work it was, the property managers are like, dude, our prices need to be up here. This is insane. We're crazy people trying to manage this stuff. And so a couple of operators weeded out pretty quick once they saw that amount of workload. But really, it was all coming over from Pad Split and those realtors that were showing them how to do it. And basically, instead of going the route of trying to scale it with people, I ended up putting just like automated systems in place in order to do this stuff. And so it's like today, it's just a bunch of automations that we're doing that kind of help run everything.
You're
I'm
saying
getting
words that
excited.
excite me.
So let me just jump in for a second. Yeah, so I guess what were some of those biggest time sucks, resource sucks, whatever it was in the earlier days that have now been automated? Like, what would be like your first few like priorities there?
Oh man, I think one of the very first things is we couldn't, and this is just because we had a property management company trying to turn it into a regular, into a co-living management
Mhm.
property. And so the first problem we had is our property managers weren't equipped for like constant messaging. If you think of a regular long-term rental, they hit you up for maintenance or maybe questions about rent, renewals, and that's kind of it. And so if you have a maintenance coordinator, you direct maintenance stuff at them, and your property manager like does something every couple of months for a property. In co-living, that model is flipped. You have people talking to you all the time about other folks in that issue. So the very first thing that the very first hurdle was probably just getting the right people in place to handle messaging and what that looks like. How do you even respond to these messages? What are you responding to this? What are you responding to that? Having your set SOPs for what the responses are, I think that's like the first big hurdle.
Just to like make sure that like everybody's on the same page here. You're operating your co-living off of Pad Split's platform, right?
Not today. Today,
Oh,
10 properties are off of Pad Split and like 80 or something on Pad Split today.
okay. We'll get into that too. Okay, keep going about your what kind of where you started with Tiago and all that, and this whatever you were talking about.
Yeah. And so I think the next piece after we figured out, okay, what are our canned responses? Then you start having issues in the homes. And people are like, the issues in the homes are then the next operational issue of just not how do you respond to them, but these issues that are happening, how do you start preventing them from happening? Because if you can kill the issue before it happens, you have less to worry about operationally. And so then we did a bunch of work with the people that were purchasing the properties and setting them up. And so making sure the layouts were optimal. Hey, this doesn't work. Making sure even things like if you have a bedroom near the kitchen, if you are setting it up from scratch, insulate that wall because people are going to be right beside the kitchen talking about that. Or if you have bedrooms beside your front door, you need to add door dampeners so that people coming in and out of the house aren't making the people by the front doors like go crazy because they keep opening up, that type of stuff. Or somebody being able to find their room during move in. We do the automated lighting down hallways so that they don't
Oh,
come into a dark room and it's a bad first move in experience. No, as soon as you come in, everything lights up. People can't turn those on or off, and they're now being able to find it throughout the house. And then in the kitchens, having parking maps and room maps to show where the rooms are. That way, somebody walks in, they go into the common area. Okay, oh yeah, I see where my room's supposed to be. It's supposed to be over there, but everything's well lit up, and they're not at 10 p.m. at night doing a move in, and they're bumping into dark stuff in this house that they've never seen before. And then after we move from the setup stuff, then we go into the screening process and expectations, which is probably like the most robust thing that we do in order to have as little issues as possible. I've got one of the like the questionnaires that we use. If you guys would want to run
yeah.
through that, because
Yeah, let's
it's
dive
kind of
deep on screening. Yeah, everybody always has loads of questions about screening. So yeah, let's dive deep.
okay, cool. Yeah, so from a screening perspective, we ended up going with building out a custom solution, and it's called Roomon. So if you end up going to like roomon.co, it's not meant for like production ready yet. I think eventually we will release these out to folks. Today we use it for specific questionnaires and screening. And if anybody wants to, we can share the link with them for them to take a look at it. But on that website, we have a questionnaire that you go and you fill out. And essentially, let's say you were doing this off of Pad Split. We've actually built a converting website where if you go to one of the listings, like you can probably look it up if you pull up roomon.co and click on Fort Worth and click on one of those listings, that web page is set to convert because you'll see a pre-approval button over on the right. That pre-approval button is just like a screening qualification. Does it make sense for us to talk to you? And you will get pre-approved as long as you answer all these questions up front without having to do an application fee. And so we let the website do the screening for us and the qualifications to know if we should even talk to you. Now, if you want to move in, the individual, if the room's available, there's apply now buttons that go into our actual, we use AppFolio, so our property management system that then runs background and credit check, but there's a hard cost there. And so the sell is, hey, fill out this pre-questionnaire and tell us about everything. And then we'll pre-approve you for a room and then just go pick your room and you can
Oh,
apply to it. And so it's just
Okay.
this little conversion factor to get people to go on.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So we talk a lot on the show about interest forms, pre-qualification form, whatever. It's the idea is what you're talking about. It's a free questionnaire that folks fill out, and it's not verified. It's just based on the inputs that the person provided. But so you're talking about, okay, you have a form like that, and if they are being honest, then whenever they actually fill out the application, they don't pay for the application. You eat the cost for that.
No, they will pay for the application. They're just
Okay.
not paying for it without knowing if they're going to be approved or not.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it's, hey, we've already talked about it all up front. This is just the cost. That's an interesting thought, though, something I haven't thought about
Yeah.
before.
I think we're
You
having brain
discount it.
blasts.
Yeah, you discount it from their move-in fee because we already want you. If you come in,
Yeah.
we'll waive it. We'll add it to your move-in fee or give you a credit for rent. So it's essentially free. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think so. I think we might start doing this, Craig. Yeah, so basically, I think maybe what the idea there would be, yeah, if you answer this pre-qualification interest form and everything you said does turn out to be true on the application, we'll refund it or we'll eat it or whatever. Whereas if they say that they have 0 evictions or let's say they said that they had an eviction, on the interest form they say 0, but then the application comes back with 1. Okay, now you do actually owe it because it was a waste of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah.
And you would probably rebate it. Like you have to pay it up front, but if
Yeah.
you were honest, we will refund it. Otherwise, yeah, no, dude, you lied. You got to eat that cost.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Okay,
So
so this is your service, Room On, and it's not totally live for clients yet, but someday soon.
no, we're using it as tools to basically make our operations easier. It's an internal tooling for us. It isn't really for like other folks to go do it. But as we've been building it out, we might just offer it as a free tool if you want to use it. Because for those that are on Pad Split, there's a bunch of stuff like you were mentioning earlier, like, hey, what learning lessons did you have that you brought over that kind of translated? One of the big things is in midterm and short-term rentals, you have automated messaging schedules, right? Like you can say, hey, on move-in, send in this message. The first day after, it checks in with you. Like, are you okay? Whenever they move out, it asks them for reviews. And we also anchor like the expectation on reviews. Like if you give us a 4-star, it's because there was something completely wrong with the home. And so we try to like anchor you to give us a 5-star and not necessarily a 4. All of that stuff doesn't exist today on the Pad Split platform. They're really good at booking your rooms, but then like the operation side, it's completely up to the operator. And so we're kind of building up some tools that will, for example, give you those automated messagings. And so like whenever somebody messages to want to book, you'll automatically get that screening questionnaire sent over to you. If somebody messages you after hours, it'll let them know like, hey, you caught us after hours. If this is an emergency, please call this number to the 24/7 maintenance. Otherwise, somebody will come back and be out in your messaging at 9 a.m. in the morning, if it's an emergency. So like all those things, Room On enables us because it's the platform that we can figure all this stuff on, and it does all the automated messaging. And then it also handles the questionnaires, the submissions. And after we do the questionnaire, it flags on our system things that we should take a look at on their questionnaire so you know what to ask. And then we hop on a call with them to review expectations and do all that good stuff.
Okay, so for these properties that are advertised on Pad Split, you're getting inquiries there and you are funneling them to Room On, where then you can start automating messaging back to them, right?
Yeah, ish. So we do send them over there to do the questionnaire and stuff, but Room On interacts with Pad Split to send the messaging. So we still keep everything on Pad Split. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I've heard a lot of people trying to automate Pad Split messaging, and you and I know some Travis who's working on stuff like that too. So Room On has figured out how to connect with them, but that's not open to everyone. That's only with certain platforms.
Yes, although you mean Room On isn't open to everyone, or that like the API?
Like Pad Split's connection is unique to Room On.
Yes, they don't have an open API. It's on the roadmap for this year. I don't know when that's going to come out, but essentially for us, it works like a Chrome extension that crawls Pad Split for you. And the Chrome extension like talks back to the Room On API to say, hey, this person messaged. Room On is, oh yeah, send them this. And then the Chrome extension like does it or whatever. And so we built out a little custom Chrome extension that does it. So whoever is handling the messaging, they would have to have that open on their browser the whole time.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. So just a couple more questions about screening. So when you're asking these questions, I'm sure that you have a very robust screening form, but at the same time, you have to balance not asking too many questions versus the other way. What sort of questions are you prioritizing? Is it just the normal type stuff, evictions, credit? Or are you like throwing in like community type questions to see how they would fit in? What's your approach there?
Yeah, what's interesting is the questionnaire starts off light. It's 5 steps. So if you look at it, there's like 5 steps on top. And we've intentionally been playing with it around to get it to convert on people filling out the thing. So it starts off super light. It's, hey, tell us about you. What are your goals with the home? Are you an introvert, extrovert, early riser, night owl? Like a lot of stuff about them. And then we then start asking about pets, service animals. We do a bunch of disclosures. We have a pretty robust service animal policy. And so they'll get fined $50 if they don't send us, if they don't comply to all the rules or send us some documentation that we need in order for them to be officially registered with us. And then it starts getting a little tougher. The second page is actually, we ask about duration, like how long they're thinking they want to stay. And then we do some upsells. So the second page is where we have, most of our homes are already fitted out with a TV, but we found that especially on Pad Split, when people are going onto the platform, they are optimizing for value, right? They're going to look at what's the cheapest room that I could find in the area that I'm looking for. And so what we found is like, even if you have the premium amenities, you might not get that many bookings. And we find that our more expensive private baths are usually the last ones to book in a house. And so that's just telling us like on this platform, the audience is looking for value. And so we hook them by starting off at a low price, and then we do upsells inside the form. But logistically, we actually don't remove the TVs. So like we have an $80 a month extra upcharge if you want a room with the TV. And so when you say yes, if it doesn't have it, we buy a $150 like 42-inch Roku smart TV from Walmart and have that installed. So like your ROI, you get that back in 3 months ish or so. But we logistically, we never take it down. It just stays there. So the next, we'll just tell them if they get in there, okay, I didn't pay for this TV. And it's, we can't guarantee you'll have a TV, but if you would have paid it, we would have guaranteed you a TV. And so 1 in 3 people right now that apply to our homes are opting into it. So 33% of your house is going to be paying $80 more per month, and it then offsets that cost. And then there's a couple of other things that we have on the roadmap, but we haven't implemented. Like whenever the cleaners are there, we can upcharge them if they want their rooms cleaned. Like we've tried the mini fridges, but we found that the mini fridges cause like bugs and other issues. So we started removing that upsell off of it. And so that next piece is like the upsells. We also in that
Here,
form.
real quick, Alfredo, I have just a couple questions. I mean, I think the upsells is smart. I've never heard anyone really talk about it that way. So we have tried, for example, the cleaning. So yeah, the cleaner is already at the property, and we pay them whatever for the shared spaces, and it's free to the tenants. We did at one point offer an upsell. Hey, you guys can opt in to get your bedroom cleaned while they're there, also once a month or whatever frequency it is for you. And I think we were offering like it would be like a $30 a month charge for them to get their room, and then if they had a bathroom, I think it was $40. And at the time, we probably only had 25 or 30 tenants or something, but no one picked it up over the 6 months we were offering it. Kind of what is your price point and how many folks are opting in?
We aren't doing the cleaning today. That's on our roadmap to do. But honestly, like the cleaners there, they'd probably charge us for an extra hour or so. So something like 18 to 20 bucks. So yeah, we'd probably be around the same price point, like an extra $30 to make a little upcharge on our end for providing that service. We only adding that because we had that request. We see that request a couple of times a month.
Okay.
And it comes from the cleaner. They were like, hey, the tenant was asking me to go into their room and do their room too, but I told them to reach out to you guys. And so that's interesting data. We hadn't heard whether or not people will do it, but I think we would probably, at what point were you engaging them to do it in your process? If they
So for us, it's different than what you're saying. It wasn't at the interest form or the application step. It was once they were already in the house. And at this point, everyone had probably already lived there 3 or 4 months and was already totally capable of cleaning their own space and everything. So maybe it would be smarter to hook them up front before they even move in.
Yeah, especially because we have the custom form that does this. Like it's such a salesy page, which I like. The conversion before we used to have it like on a Podio form, and we had 1 in 4 convert. When we moved to the salesy page, it went up to 1 in 3. And so like I would probably do it there because as they're checking through, they're like, oh yeah, I want my room cleaned. Okay, yeah, we'll check that. They're kind of, if they said yes to one of them, they're probably going to start opting into the rest of them, and it would just be interesting to then program your cleaners.
So once they actually get to the lease signing or whatever, do they confirm at that point their selections that they had on the free interest form type stage?
They do that on the phone call because the owner's going to incur a cost because we have to send the handyman out to go do this. And hey, saw that you did this. Just want to confirm that you opted in for this and this. They say yes or no. If they say no, then they stop it. If they do, they go put in the work order for it.
Okay, cool. All right. So I feel like we're just like nerding out and just like having a conversation, but I imagine people are also getting value from this. All right. So moving on past the screening, what's the next step in your process?
Then we go into the scheduling, the message scheduling stuff that I was talking
Okay.
about. And so as soon as they move in, they get the first step, which is here's our emergency maintenance number, after hour calls. They get the automated email that has all their codes in there. So whenever they go in. And so in our model, and it's a hard requirement to have us manage your property, every single door has to have a Sifely lock, interior and exterior, or else remote management then becomes really hard. So they get all those codes set up. We use the TT lock system for Sifely. And so we have automated all of the door lock management. And then the day after they get in the morning. Oh, and actually, we forgot one step as part of the screening. The last step in our questionnaire is a video that the tenant or the prospect has to record.
Oh.
And so it's really interesting because it's right on your phone and they can click record and the camera starts up right as they're there. And they have a little prompt. The first half of the prompt says, hey, tell us like what your name is, a little bit about you, and what's something like your hobbies, and then what's something you're really knowledgeable about that other pad mates could ask you about. And so there's this little video profile that they create for us. And the second half is they verbally agree to all of the house rules. So they'll read through the house rules and then say, I acknowledge these rules. One of the very last step is I agree to do my mandatory living chores and pick a day of the week to do my chores. And so before we even hop on the expectation call, before they even move in, they know they're going to be doing specific chores. And we haven't done this yet. The next stage is one of the automations is going to be to send these videos. We just use them for screening today. But the reason why we ask them that is before you move in, we want to send you the videos for everybody in the house. That way, when you're moving in, you already have a conversation starter with them. Hey, I saw your video. I saw you like this. Me too. Or ask them about whatever thing. And then it feels like you're now moving into a community and removes the like Airbnb going into a house. It's dark. I don't know anybody here. That very first barrier during move in. So if we can light up the house and you know who's in it, I think you're going to have a much better feel going into it.
That's crazy, dude. Okay. I love this. So we're just going to let Craig keep taking a back seat here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm napping in the back and I'm just like listening to the music here. So yeah, you guys rock it.
So Alfredo, question for you there, maybe apart from like the house rules part, but then like recording the first bit of that, maybe you've tracked this, maybe you have some qualitative like type knowledge about it, but so it seems like by having a video like this, you're probably going to get more qualified, more likely to be a better resident, like those sort of people coming through the funnel. Any idea how many folks you're losing due to this step who would have been qualified, or you think it's totally worth the chunk that's missing?
Yeah. So I think, and we've been tracking this a little more. And because we have the questionnaire, we're able to see who opens it and what's the completion rate because we control that software. And so I think maybe 3 out of 15 people on average that we're looking at are not opting in for it. What's really interesting is I know a couple of the other operators that were in the properties, and I think for us, really the people that are not filling it out, like it's a free online, like really easy 5-step thing to go through. If you aren't willing to do that, like a community is probably not for you because you need to be able to do things for other people in order to be considerate. And if they feel like it's intrusive, you're probably a person that might need your private suite somewhere where you're not going to be bothered by anybody else, because we both tell them they need to fill it out and then we need to hop on a call. And so if they don't want to do any of those things, they may not be a fit for co-living. So we've been okay with the drop off, but we have engineered the questionnaire quite a bit. So it starts off really easy, gets progressively more. We found that once you're on the 4th step, which the 4th step is where we ask you rental history, background check stuff, and then it gets into the video, which is like the heaviest request. Oh, and the income verification. We ask for bank statements and stuff, check stubs or bank statements, whichever one. But if you get to the 4th step, you're completing the questionnaire, which means if you got to the step where we ask you for everything and you're already there, it's fine. The drop off we see is people don't go from the 1st step to the 2nd step, which for us, like the 1st step is the easiest. So if you aren't even willing to tell us about what you want in a home, then yeah, we don't want those folks anyway. So by the time they're deep into it, the completion rate is high. It's just that initial drop off that we have people like, oh, they're asking too much stuff. I don't want to do this. And we're okay with not having those type of folks move in.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. I'm totally tracking. Okay. So resident moves in, they're getting their codes are automated, their move in emails are automated. What else you got going on?
Yeah, I think we just go into the mandatory living chore stuff. And really, we haven't been enforcing that as much. I know some people like really harp on it. We use it more of a way to keep folks accountable if they aren't being clean. So if somebody says, hey, this guy's leaving dishes in the sink, this guy's being dirty, it's okay, you agree to the chore program. So here's your warning. And we've got a 3-step system. We issue a warning, we issue a fine, and then a notice to vacate. And so it's
Mm.
just a way to keep people accountable. Whether or not they do it on that is on them. It's not a problem until another member reports it that it is a problem. And then we have the tools to say, you agree to this, here's your fine, and you have to move on.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of fines, having a fine system is really interesting. So I've heard Dave Edwards talk about implementing fines for, yeah, things like pets, things like cleanliness. Well, we've been considering doing something similar. Often what happens is, number one, something's dirty, the professional cleaner takes care of it. But in the meantime, if somebody is being dirty, usually the verbal or text or email or whatever takes care of it. But we're having some cases now where, yeah, repeated warnings, whatever. So we're thinking about a fine system, maybe kind of like you're saying. So warning, fine amount, and then notice to vacate. What is your fine amount? And are you doing anything other than for like cleanliness?
Yeah, it's usually like $25 to $50 depending on the issue. I think if you Google pad split fine schedule, something along
Mhm.
those lines, they've got a robust table for what they let you
Oh,
fine, and we kind of follow that. But we go by those by basically that fine table. And yeah, I think the what's really interesting about that is we also use it because we want people to only report to us rule breaks. Like we don't want to hear about anything else. You should come to us with rule breaks, and we use that to then kind of help rectify that issue with the tenants. And a lot of times we don't even really want proof. We just want consensus in the home that this person is doing that one bad thing. As long as we have consensus, we want to keep the culture. So we'll ask that person like, hey, this isn't a good fit. It's kind of raising other issues. Here's your reasons. Thank you.
okay. And then, so just one more thing before Craig jumps in here. So, as a property manager, you're having to be super compliant legally and all these kind of things. I know Pad Split lets you get around certain regulations potentially, but how are you treating that? Yeah, notice to vacate or whatever you need to move on. What does that actually look like when you don't have proof, but you have group consensus?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is the pad split membership agreement lets you issue notice to vacate for not being a co-living fit, essentially, or a fit for the home.
Mhm.
And so in Texas, as long as you have it contractually stated somewhere and they sign it, when you show it to the judge, will be like, okay, yeah, you agreed to those terms. And so you have to move out. And so we just go that route for these are our house rules. If you violate these, we can issue you a notice to vacate for those things. And it could be for any of these things on there. So the pad split membership agreement's pretty tight.
Gotcha.
All right. I've woken up in the back seat and I'm going to do everything I can to pull us out of these deep weeds here. Alfredo, it's obviously operating 2 or 3 houses at like 10 or 15 doors is much different than operating at 800. So what do you have in place? What team do you have in place? And like, how did you achieve? It seems like you achieve scale through relationships with Pad Split and realtors. Is that right? Like how they
That's
came
right.
in? And so, how did you achieve scale from the operational perspective in terms of building out a team? Do you have what is your org chart looking, all that kind of stuff?
Sure. So the org chart is pretty interesting. It's pretty flat. I don't have like a bunch of middle management, but I like to run things in what I call pods. And so like different markets are probably going to have like different vendors, they're going to have different ways of doing things, different regulations. And so we're kind of set up to where each region, and so like right now we're just in Texas, so like we break up the big Texas markets into their own regions. So like North Texas is Dallas, Fort Worth, you've got Austin, in San Antonio, we lump together, and then you have Houston. And so they all kind of function the same. So there is a co-living group of that the people that are just basically like think of it like a co-living operator. They know how co-living works. They message the tenants. There's a co-living manager, and most regions have 3 or less people reporting to this co-living manager. And the co-living manager, I call them the issue tracker. Like the people that are messaging the stuff, they're just kind of interacting with the clients, keeping everything, or the tenants keeping everything warm. When there's an issue, it gets bubbled up, and there is the issue tracker, which is the co-living manager. They have to go figure out how to solve this thing because it might mean getting creative with maintenance. It might mean asking something of the owner or figuring out some questions from the owner, or it might mean engaging the physical property manager. So every area, at least for us, has a physical property manager that if we need to get eyes on the property, they're the ones that we send off. And in markets that we are not in today, we actually partner with other realtors in that area, and they'll charge us like a trip fee to go get eyes on it and give us like the rundown on situations. And there's a really cool app called Show MI for realtors to be able to find other realtors that are willing for like 50 to 80 bucks. They'll go do something for you at a property. And so like we've been using that quite a bit.
I've heard of people use, I call it Shawami, but it's funny. I've heard like probably 95 different pronunciations of that app, but it is a fantastic app. We use it all the time with our realtor business. So like so it's almost you got a boots on the ground in each region, and then you've got like a handful of VAs in each region. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. It's mostly VAs for the co-living side. And then we just have one other department. Aside from accounting and billing, we have the maintenance department. And so those
Okay.
folks are watching like the maintenance tickets. They handle the maintenance call center, that type of stuff.
So you've got like messaging new prospects or new residents, you've got maintenance, and then you've got your accounting and billing. And those are
Right.
your three departments.
That's about it across the whole org. Now within
So
those, there's a little more stuff. Like there's maintenance managers, there's maintenance coordinators, internal techs, like that type of stuff within them. But those are basically the three breakups.
cool. And as you move uh, like off of pad split and towards non-pad split, do you see like more departments forming like the like whatever or resident marketing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think, oh, I forgot to mention, we do have leasing as well. And so leasing is maybe that's kind of what you were mentioning there of like, how do you get these rooms filled and how do you, yeah. So
Yeah.
because we have 10 properties off of pad split, and those are just, we don't market that we manage off of pad split. We do that as more of like, either you're in a portfolio or you're somebody that we knew and we just kind of ended up taking that on. But we've got three VAs that are, their job is just solely focused on filling rooms, both for properties that are low performing on pad split that need some help, or filling the rooms off of pad split. And so we like, they've been doing that quite a bit. That's the next piece that we probably need to automate, because the filling the room is a lot of manual stuff right now. it's
And
it's a lot more outreach.
what are they doing to fill the rooms? Are they just going on Facebook groups and just like reaching out to people or
Yeah, so it's a lot of outreach on Facebook groups, handling inquiries on Facebook Marketplace, and then your regulars like Roomies and Spare Room. We haven't
gotcha.
done Zillow as much because I really hate that if you search the property address, Zillow will bring up that it's being rented by the room. And so I
Yeah.
think you can get some leads from there, but we've stayed off of that for a little bit.
Cool. Awesome. Alfredo, where do you see your company and your business going next? You're going to continue to manage, and now you're managing a lot for other people. So do you see yourself building that way, or where do you see your scale coming from next?
Yeah, what's really interesting is I saw this post. I forgot who the poster was, but the story was Outpost and June or Juno, which were co-living operators out of the Northeast and the rest of the country that we're not in, recently merged,
Yeah.
and they are now like the largest co-living operators, something like 4,000 doors under management. And the top line revenue number. Did you see that article? Did you see what the top line revenue number was?
Well, I was funny. I was talking to Sergey yesterday, he's the founder of Outpost, and we were talking about this merge. So it's funny that
Oh,
you're bringing it up.
interesting.
You're
And
bringing it up
so
today. Yeah.
what's kind of cool is they've showed like what is possible, like what's a ceiling that they're currently at if they are the first one. And I thought the top line revenue was something like in the tens of millions for 4,000 doors. And just kind of looking at the trajectory, I'm like, we could probably get there in like the next 3 years. And so those top line numbers look pretty, they look pretty
What
enticing. And so that,
what was those top line numbers, just so for our listeners to hear?
I think it was something like 65 million in overall revenue for like annual recurring revenue once they
Like that's
merge.
management fees, not rent collected.
I don't know actually. I don't know if I looked that deep into it. In property management, like there's a lot of different ways that you can make it make money, because people expect a lot from you for like a really low fee, right?
Yeah.
Like you're for the price of like 200 to 300 bucks a month, you're getting all of these departments to handle everything for you. And so that is a super slim profit margin for property managers. And so like we do stuff in order to make money around it. Like when we offer the renters insurance thing that they pay for, we make some money per door for an admin fee on renters insurance to the tenants. You have things where we've negotiated contracts with like Spectrum so we can get the utilities wholesale to us. And because of our volume, we then resell the utilities. So like once I start looking at all that, I think you can get pretty close to 65 million top line revenue. but I wouldn't be surprised if it was rents collected as well. Which, if that's the case, like that number becomes irrelevant until you figure out what it was after, like
I mean,
once the
you
people
take
that take back
15%
revenue.
of that or whatever it is, right? That's true. That's true revenue. Cool, man. That's awesome. So you're shooting for the moon. It sounds like you're 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 rooms, whatever, right? Is that
Right.
kind
Yeah.
of
I think over the next 3 or 4 years, that's what we want to do. And really, I think the way we're going to get there is by offering all the tools that we use for free to people, because I'm pretty sure that once people start doing this, a lot of folks will tend to want to then take their foot off the gas and like let somebody else kind of manage just all of the amount of work that happens to go into co-living. Like I'm sure you guys kind of feel that from a day to day. So it's definitely a lot of work, and I think we're going to empower people to be able to do it the way that we do it, and then whenever they need us, we'll step in to help.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Miller, you got anything else for Alfredo before we head into the final part of the show?
Nope, let's start wrapping up.
All right. It is time for the
Big.
final. Oh, Bill,
It's big.
I messed up. It changed. The big
Three. Okay,
three.
next episode, guys. Next episode.
We'll figure this out. We're still early on.
All right, first
I'll start.
question.
What's one tool or system you use in your business that you couldn't live without?
Claude AI. I think if you need to figure out what to say, what to respond, how to get something to build, how to create flyers, like Claude AI right now is just my go-to. Right, it's my right-hand employee.
Why Claude over chat?
Its ability to code is like just way far beyond any other LLM. And so like, because it can code, it can create anything you want for you. It can generate an Excel doc, it can create a PDF for you. And yeah, it just, the amount of things it can do because it can code are insane. And if you guys have been following the AI craze, there used to be this thing called Claude Anthropic got pissed off at them. Now it's called OpenClaw. You basically buy a Mac Mini and put Claude on it, and you've got a full AI assistant today that you can give it prompts to go do stuff on your behalf. Crazy, big security risk. So make sure you put it on its own system and give it its own accounts it has access to. But I've been using that like a personal assistant. I even have it to where I'll have it analyze a system like something that we're building, give it a goal and say, hey, give me some ideas and build out some stuff and show it to me in the morning of like this thing that you built overnight. And so then I'll look in the morning and see if that was a good idea, if it was a good feature add, and then kind of integrate it into like our website. And it's kind of coming up with these cool ideas that I probably wouldn't even thought of or then had time to implement. And it's asking if it wants to merge it after I check it.
Cool.
Crazy.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah. I endorse that as well. Claude is kind of OP right now. Okay. Question number 2. What's a resident or house horror story that you've encountered, and what did it teach you? So biggest co-living horror story.
Oh man, I think it was back to back. When it rains, it pours. And so we had a house, and it was probably the screenings. Like a lot of our screening stuff came out of this one property, and the owners are pretty active in like social media groups, so they might see this and they might want to share their story. And it became pretty public. It was Pat Split got involved. It was crazy. Essentially, somebody moved in and they had an ankle monitor, but nothing showed on their background, so we didn't know what was going on there. That person ends up, she had a car in her driveway. And these folks are usually, a lot of them are a step above homeless. Like the audience class that we serve, they literally have like little to nothing. And so in her situation, the vehicle that she used would not, you couldn't turn it off. I don't know why you couldn't turn it off, but it would not turn back on if you did turn it off. And so she left it running. Another tenant came out, thought they were doing a really good service for her. She said, oh, she left her car on. Let me turn it off. Man, that set this person off. They took a hammer to the windows of the house. Pretty crazy thing. We had to evict her. As soon as she's getting evicted, another tenant that moved in had 4 dogs that were kenneled between, it was in the hallway. So they put them between the front door and their room, and nobody else could enter the house because the dogs were all there. And it was 4 of them. And so like that situation was just, the worst thing is we had to go through an eviction process for both of those folks all the way through the courts. And so it took a while for that owner, everybody moved out of the house. The owner's like bleeding money at that point. And so that one was really rough. We ended up implementing kind of the robust dog and service animal and all those fines and stuff beforehand. And then, asking more personal questions up front on our screening questionnaire. Cause yeah, if you have a tenant that comes in that's not a fit for the home, they might blow up the home and have everybody leave.
Dang, that's crazy. Those are always fun stories to hear, though. Like, you always want to hear like the low key psycho people. That's what we're here for. Okay, not including our group or this podcast, where are you getting your best co-living content today?
Oh man, I wanted to cop out and say like you two guys are putting out a lot of really good content.
Well, exactly. We know people who know us because they're here listening.
Yeah, for sure. I think honestly, right now, the co-living ops Facebook group with Dave Edwards, he's putting out a bunch of stuff about how to operate and do co-living. So I think he's been a really good resource, and it's just a really good Facebook group to share info in amongst people that are operating in co-living.
Love it. And where can people find out more about you, Alfredo? If they want to hit you up, follow your journey, where's the best place?
Yeah, I think right now, probably Instagram at Fredo Fire. And the I in fire is a Y because your why is the most important thing of why you do what you do. I don't know.
Nice. Wow. Is that
Really,
what
it was
the
just
Fire
taken.
Festival? Is the Fire Festival? Was that what that was? Was that
I
with
think
a
so.
Y?
I think we're trying to grow so fast that we're probably going to just blow up and try to go raise more money to keep going. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Cool, Alfredo. Thank you so much, Ben, for taking the time to really dive into your ops. What you've built is fantastic. And I'm just super stoked to hear about your scale and how you're growing so fast. And shoot, we'll probably have to have you on here in another 6 or 12 months to see where you're at once you're at 1,000+ doors. So congrats on your success, bro.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. I love talking to you guys.
Cool. See ya.
And that was Alfredo Goytia. Miller, what'd you think of Alfredo?
I think you know what I think about Alfredo because I kept asking more and more and more questions, making more and more and more notes. Yeah, Alfredo is just that guy who has achieved the scale so quickly, and through that, he's gone through lots of problems in the portfolio and made lots of solutions in the portfolio. And you'll hear whenever he talks, right? He's talking about different conversion rates and how this specific solution attacked this specific problem. Like these are all super relevant in his portfolio and also to the rest of our portfolio. So super happy to have him on here and give us all those quick and dirty tips. And not even quick and dirty. Some of them were really long. So quick and dirty and long deep dives.
Yeah, Alfredo's got his operations dial, which is really amazing. And I think it's really valuable for everybody to hear. And it's valuable for you to hear like how it works at 800+ units. And I have to imagine if it works at 800, it'll probably work you're at that scale where you're just adding more people, maybe a little bit more technology, but the gist is there. Just love sharing that. I loved I kind of loved how he came from the investment banking background and then started burring and all that, like when it was popular, and now found co-living as a strategy to stick to. So yeah, I have no doubt that he's going to continue to crush it and looking forward to seeing where Alfredo comes in the next few years. If you guys listen all the way through, that means we absolutely deserve a 5-star review. So please give us a 5-star review on wherever you're listening. Drop a comment. That's what makes the show get more popular. That's what makes the show really take off. And that's what really makes co-living a thing in this industry. And so if you want to contribute, give back even just the slightest bit, drop that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, whatever. It's not iTunes anymore, apparently. Spotify, wherever you're listening. That'd be super appreciated. Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk soon.
Cool. See ya.